are you?
Doing great. Thank you, Diego.
Do you remember what was your first contact with technology?
My first contact with technology was in kindergarten. I was 5 years old, and we had Commodore PET computers in a computer lab, and so I was learning to program with Microsoft Basic.
Wow. While you were just a kid, learning to program.
That's the best time to start. It's important to become second nature. Of course, I didn't stick with it and was a history major, but always stayed close and fascinated with computers.
Man, and do you remember your first contact with something you knew was business?
In college, I started this is a little embarrassing to admit, but I started a Facebook, meaning a directory of students it was actually a physical book. So we collected all the photos from the different students and got advertisers for in the book and published the book and sold it around campus and made money from the sales and from the advertising. So I don't.
What grade? Around fifth grade?
No, this was in college. This was
college,
a college project.
Okay.
Yes. So
Wow.
Mark Zuckerberg did a much better job than I.
Well, maybe you paved the path for him. Do you know him? Like, are you friends or do you meet?
He's in the community. I've had the honor of meeting him a few times, and very brilliant, dynamic, and exactly what we need in Silicon Valley are people that are extremely innovative, not afraid of taking big risks, and doing things that impact the world on a great scale. And he's also, from a very young age, a philanthropist. He's already made a major impact on the philanthropic side. So he is a really amazing role model, in entrepreneurship for the world.
Are you doing something philanthropic as well?
What we focus on at Eventios and in Eventbrite is that we offer nonprofit. We provide a really inexpensive price for nonprofits, and we process or we help so many different nonprofits use our service and make it a great experience and make it at a very low price, with the idea that this is going to help them raise more money, operate their nonprofit better, and that's where we've been focused. It's exciting to see all the different great causes out there that are using our platform.
We hear a lot that startups, businesses and websites and online systems are all about analytics. Do you have some sort of metrics about NGOs that have been running Eventbrite, for example, and then they might have leveraged their operations? I don't know. Curiosity.
Yeah, on aggregate, this is
to see how deep
off
this
the top of my
analytics
head. I know we're processing tens of millions of dollars a year for nonprofits, and that's a great question. I wish I had right on hand. Some ideas of or just some specifics on these actual growth numbers, but on aggregate. The fact that we're processing tens of millions a year and soon hundreds of millions and beyond, really makes me and our team very proud and excited, and we'll continue to lean into programs like that.
But you still process more for regular businesses than for nonprofits?
That's right. We last year, between Eventios and Eventbrite, processed 1 billion US dollars last year, and growing very fast.
Wow.
And that's because we cover. We're a ticketing company, but as you traditionally think of ticketing, you think of the big concerts or the big football, soccer matches, and we're providing a platform for all different types of organizers. Anyone can get onto the platform and start selling tickets in a matter of minutes. So, for example, startup entrepreneurs that are putting together an event or a conference on entrepreneurialism can sign up with Eventios and here in Brazil and begin using it immediately. But we cover many different categories: politics, nonprofits, as we mentioned, music, theater, lots of races. We have a big gaming conference coming up, Comic-Con, is it, in November, which is going to be around 80,000 people using the Eventios platform. So we're really excited about this notion of democratizing events and covering all these different categories.
How many people work for Eventbrite plus Eventios?
We've crossed 350 people worldwide.
Have you acquired other companies as well as Eventios?
We've made 2 acquisitions of Eventios here in Latin America, and the excitement there is that we came down here to build the business organically on our own, and we met the Eventios team and saw wonderful, fantastic, really strong entrepreneurs, and are really delighted with the work that they're doing here in Latin America and Brazil specifically. And we've also acquired a company called Lanyard, which was based in London, and just some wonderful technologists. Simon, one of the founders, was the co-creator of the Django framework and created a really structured data set around events that we've brought in and are applying to our global platform.
Of these people, how many of them are from your previous college or even before experiences?
Yeah.
Do you remember like one of your best buddies or friends still with you?
I think that's very important, is that you build networks. I went to Stanford University in Palo Alto, and the Stanford network is really strong. I was an investor advisor at PayPal, and the PayPal network is very strong, and I think that's a lesson for all entrepreneurs, especially here in Sao Paulo, is that having people you trust and that you know well, and that you find those talented people, you see them over time. I see that with Eventios. The team, most of the team has known each other since they were children. Went to elementary school together, went to the university together, and it's a very tight-knit team, and they grow the network that way, and I think that's a very important aspect of entrepreneurialism, is that chemistry gets solidified, or you really know that the chemistry is going to work, versus meeting your co-founder one day and versus knowing him or her for years.
Wow. So this brings me like more questions, like how old is Eventbrite? Where were you born exactly? Mm-hmm. And do you come from an entrepreneurial family?
Eventbrite was founded in 2006, and I was born in Berkeley, California, which is just east of San Francisco, and in my background, my family is, my parents are, they're really not on the entrepreneurial side. My father's an attorney, my mother's in commercial real estate, so I was the kind of odd duck of the family. And I think many people in my town, most of them, from my hometown, very few of them took an entrepreneurial path, and so it was an exciting and risky endeavor for me to do.
You became an investor like in PayPal and other startups. Was it your own money, or you were like at a VC company?
It was my own money.
So Eventbrite's money. I mean, your money from Eventbrite.
Actually, my first company, I started a company in the late '90s, and we had a modest acquisition, and it seemed, or it was very maybe lucky or foolish or something, but I rolled all that money into PayPal. I had known Peter Thiel as an undergraduate. He was a graduate student. We were in student government together, and put most of those earnings into PayPal, and PayPal was one of those few companies from the late '90s that actually survived and thrived. And more than just the opportunity to invest, it was the opportunity to see really a great team up close, and to learn, to see all these entrepreneurs like Peter Thiel and Reid Hoffman and Elon Musk. It was very inspirational and informative for me, and drove me to then start Zoom in 2002, which is a money transfer company. We compete with Western Union and went public on the NASDAQ last year. I'm still on the board of directors there, and then also start Eventbrite in 2006. And I've been angel investing, had the opportunity to invest in some really exciting companies, and that also gives me a lot of insights on the decisions I make and the things I do to help when we build Eventbrite and Eventios.
What other companies have you invested in? Like Airbnb also?
Was a seed investor in Airbnb, a early investor in Pinterest, was the first investor in a company called Trulia that went public on the NASDAQ, an investor in a mobile security company called Lookout, investor in a satellite imaging company called Skybox, in a genetics company called Council. So, all these are interesting to learn about and see all these different great entrepreneurs in action. Also invested in Yammer, which was from David Sachs. He was the head of product at PayPal, and that company was acquired by Microsoft a couple of years ago.
Yes. So, wow. This is a great timeline. I mean, does it come from being a historian, or more from of the networking environment? I mean, you mentioned the networking is great. I think I was trying to ask, like, what's the more impactful on your career? What you studied, or how you related to other people?
I think the university is important for really learning how to learn, and it's almost in my case I studied history, and so for me it was about pattern recognition, is looking, as is often said and is very true, history repeats itself, and we have technology cycles that go up and down, and follow very similar courses of action, and so it's really following these patterns and looking for these similar patterns is what I would say that most intrigues me. I invest to really learn about, because I'm intrigued by very talented entrepreneurs and enjoy learning from them, and that's really the basis of Eventios and Eventbrite. Is we love to learn, we like to share information, we like to collaborate and challenge ourselves and build something great. And whether in the opportunity to get to angel invest in some of these great companies has afforded me insights that I can take back to my own to our company and also share that with the entrepreneurs I'm working with. So it's really the key. Here in Sao Paulo, whether you're investing or just collaborating with other companies, I've always found it extremely important to just share ideas and to spend a lot of time with other entrepreneurs.
Do you remember day one at Eventbrite?
I do quite well. We were in
How was it?
It's always a bit of a nervous time and an uncertain time.
Has it ceased to be?
It's I would say it's very exciting, but I would say you always wake up and hear bad news and have big challenges ahead of you, and that's just part of comes with the territory. And so I've kind of stopped worrying about these things and just focus on building something great. And entrepreneurs are always going to be encountering obstacles, and staying focused on your business, on your vision, and being persistent is the most important thing to do.
How do you think Latin America and Brazil, more especially, are doing as an ecosystem hub, if you might call it this way? Do you feel like we have a hub, or we are a hub here, or?
I do absolutely feel that way. Here in Sao Paulo, I was first introduced. I met the Eventios team a couple of years back. They'd come up from and visited us in San Francisco. This was maybe 2 years prior to the acquisition, and was pleasantly surprised at the level of sophistication and understanding and talent of that team then, and then through our investors, Tiger Global, that has been very active in the region, have gotten to witness firsthand many of these companies growing, and watching Netshoes grow over the last couple of years, seeing Mercado Libre really expand and become something significant, and then also being down last year and touring around and meeting different startups. It does feel a lot like, it feels no different than the southern market of San Francisco in a year like 2006.
Do you remember what was the first time you paid attention on Brazil? Was it because of a startup or a tech company? Do you remember like something from the 90s or early 2000? Do you remember having heard of Buscapé back then, or what?
Somewhat familiar with Buscapé. I guess my first official visit to Brazil was in high school. My family came down, but I only made it just barely across the border because we were at Iguazu Falls on the Argentinian side. So that's my brief first visit to Brazil. I think it's really, I think watching Netshoes grow, seeing Mercado Libre as a whole, and then really what struck me was my visit last year, and having gone to I visited an office that had a number of different startups together at it, and that just struck me as a very important sign of a culture forming. And there were Stanford computer science graduates there. There was a Wharton MBA there, and instead of these really talented people going to the United States and starting their companies, they came back to Brazil to start their companies, and that's a critical change to see the talent not leaving the country for entrepreneurialism, but staying in the country for the great opportunity.
That's great. Have you ever recommended other friends of you from the Valley or somewhere else that they invest in Brazil? Would you recommend?
Well, it's always on a company by company basis. I unfortunately haven't had as much opportunity to angel invest recently because my time is now spent with Eventios and Eventbrite, and that's really consuming so much time. But there's great entrepreneurs everywhere, and there seems to be some magic formula that there is a wonderful culture for startups here in Sao Paulo, and some very exciting ones. I wish I had more time to spend looking at them individually, and I know a lot of my colleagues that are investors are doing that right now.
I want to ask something more about Eventios and Eventbrite, but before that, just the question about like trends in the market. What's more interesting to you these days? Like, have you bought Bitcoins? Do you like what type of new things?
I'm long in Bitcoin. So I own Bitcoin. I do see its vision as being, as the internet protocol, TCP/IP is the underlying protocol for the internet and for communications. That Bitcoin has that opportunity to be the underlying, infrastructure for money, for currency, and so Bitcoin's very interesting. I'm an investor in a Bitcoin mining company, and then an investor in a company called Zappo, which is started by an entrepreneur from South America, in fact.
Wow.
I would say that in terms of other trends, what I like to look for more for really innovative entrepreneurs that are doing things quite different. It's important not to just jump on to the latest trend. It's important to be to seize hold or to take advantage of opportunities like the growth of Android or the potential of Bitcoin or the certainly the social media revolution. For example, Eventios, we've really grown through social media in the sense that people naturally like to share what their events they're attending, and so we've seen an enormous amount of Brazilians sharing what events they're attending on Facebook, and that drives a great amount of organic traffic back and drives more ticket sales, and that has been a key value piece for Eventios. So looking at those types of trends and taking advantage of them as an entrepreneur are important. But to the earlier point, it's important to be contrarian, to start something new, to do something that just doesn't follow the crowd, be very original, and you don't necessarily just want to be the the Latin American version of some American company, but really try to think about what really great market need is out there, what technology trends are coming that you can take advantage of and build something great.
Doesn't it mean that we should expect to pay tickets on Eventbrite or Eventios with Bitcoins, for example?
There will be the day that happens, but we want to do it when the timing's right. And although I'm a proponent of Bitcoin, it's just too early. And it's important not to be too early. So we've intentionally not integrated Bitcoin yet because we just don't see the consumers have the right tools, the right, it's not easy enough yet for consumers. Now I'm personally investing, or I've helped, I want to see that market develop, but I'm not going to force technology onto consumers until it's really ready and gives our customers a great experience.
You mentioned that you've been very busy with the Eventios integration. Is it your main project today?
Well, I've been down here working hard with the team, and
it's
the
been
great thing,
6 months, right?
Yeah, a little longer than 6 months. The opportunity down here is vast. The wonderful thing is that we have great teams here in Brazil and in Argentina really help build this. So in a lot of senses, I feel like a board member of Eventios, and get to mentor and work closely with the teams to build out the great opportunity here.
Are you targeting, or let me change the question, do you have a huge expectation about the World Cup for your businesses?
World Cup is a little too soon. The question is around the World Cup. Yeah. World Cup is very exciting. I think unfortunately we're probably the cycle of ticketing has already been decided there. So we'll focus on the next World Cup as the next opportunity.
Maybe the Olympics.
Perhaps the Olympics.
That's great.
But I would say that the World Cup and the Olympics are great, amazing examples of live experiences. But what's been underrepresented and what Eventios is really serving now is all those events that couldn't use any kind of ticketing system before, and so you can build a great, enormous business off smaller customers. You don't need these massive customers, although we are moving into larger and larger customers, but we really like to help the underserved, and it's a lesson for entrepreneurs is that the internet is this great leveling mechanism that allows you to reach many small customers that add up to actually larger size than even the biggest.
Well, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you very much, Diego. Really a pleasure.
Very